According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, quote, a concussion is a type of traumatic brain injury, or TBI, caused by a bump, blow, or jolt to the head by any hit to the body that causes the head and brain to move rapidly back and forth, end quote. A major cause of sport-related concussions is an athlete's prior history of concussions. Research suggests that if someone has already received one concussion, they are 1 to 2 times more likely to receive a second one. If they had 2 concussions, then a third is 2 to 4 times more likely. If they had 3 concussions, then they are 3 times more likely to receive their 4th concussion. According to momsteam.com, the reasons athletes gave for not reporting possible concussions were that they, number 1, did not think the injury was serious enough to report, number 2, did not want to be removed from the game, number 3, did not want to let down teammates, number 4, did not want to let down the coaches, number 5, did not know the event was a concussion, and number 6, did not want to be removed from practice.
Alex Borowski of Windsor High School in California couldn't tell he was badly hurt.
The hit itself wasn't that big. I suffered worse hits, 2 days earlier in practice, and I was basically sleepwalking through the rest of the game.
Coaches are trained to identify when a player is injured, but it can take time for symptoms to appear.
They didn't take me out until the third quarter when one of my coaches noticed how I was acting, and even on film I could see that, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Often, players try to hide their injuries to get back in the game, not realizing concussions can lead to memory loss, sleep problems, and changes in behavior. This player at Austin High School, who asked not to be identified, said he saw flashes of light and stars, and even blacked out. He knew what the symptoms meant, but he wanted to keep playing despite these and other injuries.
I have had about 15 to 20 concussions, and I've only recorded 4.
That figure is based on personal experience rather than medical evidence. But even if the true number is less, this player says there's no question the hard hits have affected his brain.
I do feel as if the concussions have diminished my ability to concentrate on certain subjects, especially like math, adding numbers. It seems a lot harder, or figuring out a puzzle is just a lot more tedious than it should be.
The lax attitude stems partly from a culture where on-field performance is paramount, and kids just want to play.
16-year-old kid, you're invincible. You want to get back on the field as quickly as you can, and concussion, you get a headache, but you really don't feel it. It's not like a sprained ankle.
Chuck Cook, a graduate of Black River Falls High School in Wisconsin, explained how he and his friends beat the so-called impact test, a set of associations and memory questions used to diagnose concussions.
I did not take the impact test seriously. My freshman and sophomore year, I tested low on purpose. I didn't want to have to sit out a football game because I had a concussion.
Meaning when Chuck was tested after a hard hit to see if he had a concussion, his low score would not set off alarm bells that he was hurt, and he could go back in the game. And while new regulations require coaches to take head injury awareness classes, players revealed there's still a lot of pressure to get back in uniform. Jesse Horseman from Fort Mill, South Carolina.
A couple days after I got my concussion, I definitely felt pressured to get back onto the field, and I wasn't comfortable at all because it was only a couple days afterwards and coaches were asking me, how much longer.
But for Richard Cunningham in Austin, the health effects were too much. He decided to switch sports.
I miss football more than probably anyone out there, but it was just what was in my health's best interest. I've been blessed that concussions put things in line for me, and I was able to focus more on my baseball path and my academics. And as much as I do miss football, it's been a blessing in disguise having to put it up.
In Montana, it was only after one player died from repeated head injuries that attitudes truly began changing. Dylan Steigers went into a coma after a hard hit during a scrimmage in 2010. He was flown to the hospital and died the next day. His parents channeled their grief to push forward the Dylan Steigers Protection of Youth Athletes Act, a state law that requires each school district to test for concussions and set guidelines for when an athlete can start playing again.
We will never recover. We will never recover. But we can do if you can do something positive in your life to help somebody else, that's very healing.
High school football player coaches have the ability to run their team how they want. However, they also hold responsibility for every player in every situation that is performed. According to Dr. Christopher Giza, director of the Brain Sport Program and professor of neurosurgery and pediatric neurology at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA and Mattel Children's Hospital, UCLA, he said about 2/3 to 3/4 of all concussions happen during practice with the player's own teammates and not during games. All in all, coaches need to teach new techniques that don't use the head as a weapon. Coaches need to seek new training. Make sure they learn the basics of concussion risks, signs and symptoms, and how to respond if an athlete shows signs of a concussion. If they don't know where to start, the CDC offers a free training course. Coaches need to commit to safety. They need to implement a policy statement that includes a commitment to safety. More so, a brief description about concussions and information on what athletes can safely return to play. This will need to be signed by all students and parents. An action plan can ensure concussions are identified early and managed correctly.
As a coach, I'm going to promise them they're going to get the best equipment. I'm going to teach them the best techniques that are out there. You know, we go to clinics too and learn from the college coaches and pros and things like that.
A new study finds that high school football players suffer concussions more often than minor injuries like knee sprains or fractures. So educating them ahead of time about the symptoms of a concussion is key.
And you have to go 5 consecutive days without signs of concussion before you can come back and practice or participate in a competition.
The study found that players are injured much more during practice than during actual games. So teams have to change how they practice in order to keep the players safe.
There's going to be some state mandates in terms of the amount of contact or engagement you can have in a week. So they're going to limit it to 90 minutes of engagement a week, and it's also 30 minutes a day.
And with those changing rules constantly increasing awareness and improving equipment technology, Coach Schoen believes current and future players can confidently keep playing the game, and their parents can be confident in their safety.
Would I let my son play? Heck yeah. I mean, I'd probably let my daughter play.
Coaches also have the responsibility of educating the parents. See if some parents are willing to form a safety committee to educate other parents on safe play and techniques, as well as to hand out informational materials at practices and games. Also, coaches need to promote a safety-first attitude. They need to look for ways to emphasize safe play. They need to take athletes out of practice or the game with any signs of any injury, enforce speaking up when hurt, and discourage other athletes from teasing teammates for sitting out due to an injury. Lastly, coaches need to seek medical advice. They need to insist on doctor approval to return to play after any injury, especially a concussion. According to WebMD, repeat concussions cause cumulative effects on the brain. Successive concussions can have devastating consequences, including brain swelling, permanent brain damage, long-term disabilities, or even death. Don't let a student return to normal activities if they still have symptoms, even with medical clearance. Trust your judgment. Your prolonged time with the athletes allows you to be better to see the behavioral signs of concussion damage better than a